So here's the situation. The WNB just got hit with a reality check harder than a block layup in the fourth quarter. And yeah, it's all unraveling around one name, Caitlin Clark, the Golden Girl women's basketball, the Phantom, the ratings machine, the billion-dollar Brandon, a ponytail, and now she's gone. Caitlin Clark officially announced she won't be returning for the 2025 season, and the league is spiraling. If you're here for the real story and not to filter version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. You can almost see the sound of exact slamming. Iced latte is on the boardroom table, frantically refreshing viewership charts, hoping to numbers are glitch. But no, this isn't take issue. It's a full-blown meltdown. Let's be honest, the WNBA didn't just embrace Caitlin Clark. They clung to her like a lifeline. Every camera flash, every sold-out arena, every primetime TV slot was Caitlin-centric. She wasn't as part the league's marketing plan. She was a marketing plan. And now that she's stepping away, the curtain has been yanked off the stage, and we're all staring at the same uncomfortable truth. The WNBA had no backup plan. Let's rewind for a second. When Caitlin Clark into the league was like a bolt of lightning hit the hardwood. She brought in a tidal wave of new fans, curious viewers, and national media who, let's be real, had watched a full WNBA game in years. If ever. The Indiana Fever went from a team most people couldn't point on a map to the most talked about squad in sports media. Ticket prices skyrocketed, viewership broke records, ESPN placer face across every promo, even merge with flying off the shelves was a kind of buzz league's dream. But with all that excitement came one very dang your strategy, putting all the league's hopes on one player's back. And unfortunately, that back didn't hold the signs were there. Caitlin was playing massive minutes, getting tossed into game after game with minimal rest and maximum pressure opponents to and go easy. Why would they? She was a headline, the hype, the challenge. But while fans were cheering, critics were already started to whisper, is a lead doing have to protect her? Turns out they weren't. The injury hit like a gut punch. 1 minute she's on court, trial dragged the fever and relevancy. The next she's sidelined. And then the whispers turn into screams. What exactly happened? Why wasn't there more transparency? Why were updates vague and PR flavor instead of honest? The lead dodged the Fever gave can answers, and fans, they started feeling betrayed. Because when your entire market machine is based around one person, fans don't see a player get hurt. They see their whole investment fall apart. Viewership nosedive hard. Fever games, which have been drawing massive numbers on a BC, and he has been to saw ratings drop by over 50% after Clark's injury. 50% ticket resale prices cratered. Entire arenas that were once packed with fans and number 22 jerseys suddenly had rows of empty seats. The spark was gone, and the silence was deafening. And then came the announcement, no Caitlin for the rest of the season, and not for the next either. That's when the panic button was smashed behind the scenes. Networks were scrambling, ESPN and ABC. He who had built their summer schedules around WNBA matchups were now stuck with lukewarm ratings and sponsors getting nervous. Brand of sign on thinking maybe aligning with the Caitlin Clark era were suddenly reconsidering their ad spend. Some are even pulling out the billion-dollar hype train off the rails, and is now not just media problem, it's a cultural one. Caitlin wasn't just a basketball star. She was a moment, A Genji icon, a symbol that women's sports could finally break to the mainstream. She brought courtside bus celebrity fans viral highlights. Without her, the WNBA looks smaller, quieter, back to niche, which raises a very awkward question. Was any of it real? Did fans actually buy into the league? Or just her? Because now that she's out, the number suggests a ladder, and is not a good look. Let's top brass tacks. Economists estimate Clark's absence could cost the league up to $1 billion. That billion with a B. We're talking lost revenue from ticket sales, merged TV rights sponsorships, and even city little tourism from fans traveling to see her play. And that kind of losses, and just a blip. It's a warning siren. This entire mess is exposing the kind of vulnerability no professional league ever want on display. The WNBA bit the house on one card, and now that card is out of the deck, and worse, fans are mad. There's a growing sentiment online. The lead and protector rush her into too many games, and then kept her status under wraps. Until it's too late, the trust is broken. And when fans stop trusting a lead, they stop watching. Let's pause for a second and give out a little fake award. Joey, worst load management. The year goes to the WNBA and Indiana Fever. Congratulations on this, managing your biggest asset like a bad crypto investment. Truly groundbreaking stuff. What makes this even more painful is how preventable it could have been. Load management isn't a new concept. The NBA does it. Soccer clubs rest their stars, but the WNBA, they went full throttle. Whether there was pressure from networks, ticket sales, or just poor planning, the result was the same: burnout and injury. And now a void that no one else seems ready or able to fill. Because let's be honest, the league has other talented players, but none of them had the crossover appeal, the media charisma, the cultural spark that Caitlin had. She wasn't as an athlete, she was a narrow it of. And now the stories had a dead end. And while the league scrambled to figure out who can carry the torch next, fans are already tuning out. Casuals, we're here for the clock hype, aren't sticking around for mid-tier matchup with no buzz. Broadcasters are praying for a miracle play, a storyline, and XX. They're spinning in circles. Try to pitch sponsors on a lead that suddenly feels invisible again. It's brutal. And yet, it's also kind of lesson. This whole saga is a masterclass and what not to do when you finally get your breakout star. The WNBA had a golden opportunity to build a more sustainable ecosystem around Caitlin Clark, to market with her, not just through her, to elevate the league, not hit entirely to her shoulders. Instead, they built a skyscraper with no foundation. And when Caitlin pulled out, the whole thing crumbled. So now, here we are. The league is facing an identity crisis. Sponsors or ghosting, fans are angry. And the person who once looked like the league's future is the guidelines. Possibly reconsider an entire endeavor. What's left? Honestly, a lead that needs to take a hard look in the mirror. The WNBA can still recover. If it learns from this, it needs to invest in multiple stars. It needs to manage player help better. It needs to rebuild fan trust with honesty, not PR fog. And it needs remember that a lead can survive on one name alone. Because of Caitlin Clark taught us anything, it's that yes, one person can change the game, but the game won't last if it's built around a single player. So maybe this is a wake-up call, the lead in want, but desperately needed. And you're watching all this, and with a mix of frustration, disbelief, and low-key fascination. Same drop a comment with your hot take. Was a league set up to fail the minute they write Clark? Or is this just a rough patch on the road? Bigger things. And hey, if you're into celebrity meltdowns, viral PR disasters, and sports off like this, you know what to do. When Caitlin Clark got drafted, it wasn't just a basketball story. It was a pop culture moment. You had die-hard sports fans, casual viewers, and even people who hadn't touched a basketball since high school gym class, all tuning in suddenly. WNBA highlights were showing up on time. Timelines that had never once cared about bounds or pick and rolls. She was a spark, the story, the reason the league was finally get the attention it had been chasing for decades. It was like watching a struggling indie band finally get hit single, and instead of building album, the label just kept remix in that same track, hoping notice the rest of the catalog wasn't selling, but people didn't notice. And the second that track stopped playing, silence. The fallout from Clark's exit hasn't just been financial or reputation, or it's emotional for fans who finally felt seen, who finally felt like women's sports are breaking through. It feels like the air got some outer room. And for the league, it's not just about scrambling to fill seats. It's about figuring out how to rebuild an entire narrative. Because here's the brutal truth. Caitlin Clark was a narrative. Every WNBA storyline started and ended with her. She was the cliffhanger, the hero, the ratings guarantee. And now the script is blank. And a problem is they had time. The league had a runway to build around her. They could have invested in rating rivalries, highlighting veterans, developing young talent, charisma, and storyline to their own. But instead, was the Clark show 24/7. Everyone else was either background noise or plot device. You know what kind of feels like when a hit TV show introduces a breakout character, and the network immediately the or 5 side projects before the first season's even over. It's all hype. No structure. No one thought to ask what happens if she's no air anymore. And here we are. Let's talk about the vibe shift. Remember, when Caitlin first the court, the energy was electric. Every game felt like an event. So, social media lit up with clips of her logo, threes, her swagger, her smack talk. The crowd reactions were wild. Celeb showed a courtside. ESPN started cutting into their programming just to show her warm-ups. Fast forward, and now dead feet, empty seats, and some fans, even die-high, are starting check out like call me when she's back. And that's the part that really stings. The people who just discovered this league or now go see it just as fast, which isn't even their fault. Really, the product they were sold was Caitlin Clark, and now that product on the shelf with no restock dating in sight. So what's the WNBA doing in response? So far it feels like a whole lot of nothing. No big pivot, no new star marketing campaign, just the collective "we're figuring it out" energy that isn't doing much to reassure sponsors or fans. And listen, figuring out we're behind the scenes. But when your audience has already halfway out the door, you need more than vague statements and reruns. Let's give out another fake award show. This one's called the Houdini Disappearing Act of the Year. And it goes to the WNBA PR team. Seriously, you think at a moment like this, when fans are confused, angry, and desperate for leadership, someone would step up with a plan, a message, anything. But nope, radio silence. And that silence is louder than you think, because fans are watching and they're reading between the lines. Meanwhile, Caitlin injury has become the elephant in every room. Nobody wants to say directly But the message is clear. She was overused, underprotected, and pushed too hard, too fast. And now the league's most valuable asset is benched fans aren't dumb. They saw the intensity. They saw the hit she took. They saw the minutes rack up. And when the lead tried to spin it like she's just resting, people roll their eyes because you can't fake transparency. Not in 2025 now, and fans have receipts and replays, and honestly, the betrayal runs deeper than just for injury. Is a feeling that the league knew this could happen and chose to gamble anyway. That's what's really bothering fans. Wasn't just misfortune. It was negligence dressed up in optimism. And now they want people to rally behind the rest of season with what a bunch of junky highlight reels and recycle high packages. It's giving we'll figure out in post and post-production. Can't fix a broken story arc with Wild is. This could have been a turning point. In a good way, Clark's popularity could have been a rising tide that lifted everyone. Imagine a WNBA that user spotlight to shine on other players, gave us rivalries, storylines, actual drama beyond one player. But instead, we got the Caitlyn cinematic universe and no sequel. What's happening now is a full-scale retreat. Broadcasters are scaling back. Casual fans are disengaging. Even major sponsors are suddenly going quiet on social. You can practically hear the brand managers whispering, "Let's circle back next quarter." And then there's the players, the ones who've been grinding for years without the spotlight, the ones who finally got some shine because Clark brought the cameras. What happens to them now? Some arbiter. Some are sympathetic. All of them are back to fighting for coverage. The sad part, this could have been avoided. All of it. It didn't have to be Clark or bust. But that's what the league made it. They poured everything into one star like it was 1996. And we still believe in overnight saviors. But sports don't work like that anymore. We want dynasties, we want villains, we want storylines that last more than one season. This whole crisis, it's not just that Caitlyn got hurt story. It's a you didn't build anything around her story, and that's on leadership. So where we go from here? Well, here's a wild idea. Actually market your other players, build rivalries. Give us characters, make us care about more than one jersey. Highlight the vets who've been carrying the league for years. Give us drama, give us narrative, give us stakes, because right now the WNBA is running on fumes, and unless they pivot fast, this moment could go from the stumble to a collapse. It's time for the league to realize that success isn't about finding one star. It's about creating a constellation. In multiple stories, multiple reasons. Tune in, because of the entire show falls apart. When asked to leave the stage, there was never real production. Begin with it. Was just a solo. Caitlyn Clark deserve better. The fans deserve better. And the league, well, they better start acting like they've got me. More than one plan, because the clock's ticking. The fact that we're even still talking about Caitlyn Clark weeks after her announcement just proves the point. The league isn't moving on. The fans are moving on. And the media, they're clinging to the storyline like as the last good episode of a dying show. The WNBA was finally found on the edge of a breakout moment. Think about that. After decades of fighting for airtime, sponsorships, and basic respect, they got their spotlight. And instead of building infrastructure, they build a shrine to one player who again is now sidelined. And definitely, and the worst part, they're acting like we didn't see it coming. We did. Everyone, did you ever watch someone win a lottery and then immediately buy a mansion with no plumbing? That's what this feels like. The WNBA, a hit, the jackpot. Clark And instead of using momentum to improve their foundations, they blew the budget on vibes, short-term gains, flashy promos that whole "this is a movement" energy with zero backup in the end installed. Well, the engine has stalled, and there's no AAA roadside rescue coming. You want another fake award? Let's do it. Best one-woman show that you've been an ensemble goes to the 2024 WNBA season, because seriously, how did nobody that boardroom stop to say, hey, maybe we should start spreading the love just in case? Like, we get it, Clark was printing money. Every shot she took was worth a few thousand eyeballs. But the whole circus 10 on one pole and expect it to hold up to storm. That's just bad management. That's hubris dressed up as strategy. And now it's not just hurt in the league, it's hurting everyone around it. Let's talk about the other players for a second. Imagine being in your prime, having a breakout season, finally getting ESPN say your name, and suddenly poof, the cameras are gone. The hype has left the building because Clark is and on the court, so apparently nobody else matters. There's this weird tension now between the players. We're quietly hoping to capitalize on her fame and those who resent for the entire spotlight being hers to begin with. And you can feel in the air. Interviews are a little icier. The press conferences are a little more defensive. Everyone's walking on eggshells, because here's the kicker: now that the league needs someone else to step up, there's no clear next in line now. Because there aren't other stars, there are plenty. But because the WNBA never gave him the stage, they kept resetting the spotlight, the center, on Caitlyn every single time, and now the spotlight's empty. Even fans want to care, asking, okay, who's next? And the silence that follows, it's awkward now, because there aren't good answers, but because no one prepared them. You think a league that exists since 1996 would be better at legacy planning, but this whole thing has exposed something kind of tragic. The WNBA doesn't just lack star depth in a public eye, it lacks the infrastructure to promote star depth. They haven't mastered the art of turning talent into narrative. Because let's be honest, sports fandom isn't just about skill, it's about story. It's about moments, rivalries, iconic quotes, signature moves, the things that make you buy the jersey or argue in a group chat. And Caitlyn, she gave people all of that. But what are the league give back? An overloaded schedule, mammal protection, and a media frenzy that eventually turned into a crucifixion when an injury started. Now there's a collective amnesia go around, like, well, maybe this was inevitable. Like the league couldn't done anything differently. But let's not rewrite history here. They could have sat her. They could have kept her minutes. They could share the spotlight. But instead, they watched the golden goose limp across the court and said, she's fine, look at the ratings. And now those ratings straight into the basement. You know what this all reminds me of? That early 2000 pop star phenomenon. You remember how every record label had one girl they put all their money on, and a second she hit a snag, overexposure, burnout, media backlash, they dropped like forgotten, single and square, able to find the next one. That's what this feels like, but worse, because unlike the music industry, the WNBA, a dozen of 10 new acts waiting in the wings with choreograph, rollout, and a TikTok strategy. They have one superstar, one crisis, and a whole lot of, well, what now? Fans, they're over it. They're tired of being told, just wait for a comeback, wait for a bounce back, wait for the next big thing. But sports don't work on hypotheticals. Fans want now. They were momentum. They want to feel like to think they're investing in his real, not just a temporary spike in trending to topics the WNBA had now, and they let it slip. Here's the wild part. Caitlin Clark will come back when his next season to season after she's not done. And when she does, all eyes will be back on her. But will the league be ready then? Or they just go to rear on the same place? Book until she breaks again? That's the haunting question hanging over this whole saga. Because they don't change anything, then the same script will play out again. And next time fans might not come back. And if you think this is all little dramatic, you're right, it should be. This was a chance to read, to find an entire league, to turn a moment into a movement, to prove that women's sports could finally get the infrastructure, the investment, the respect it deserves. Instead, we got a masterclass and mismanagement in how to take a generational talent and use her up without a plan for what comes next and how to get him million new fans and the door and leave them standing around with no one to cheer for. You'll get alerts. Second chances in sports media attention spans are short and audiences even shorter. If the WNBA wants to survive this, they need to stop pretending everything's fine and start fixing the actual problem. Start treating the league like a long-term